Welcome back inside the Veterans Memorial Arena on our Time Warner Cable Intermission Report. Grady Wittenberg with you between the second and third periods with Binghamton Senators Executive Vice President in charge of business operations, Tom Mitchell. Kind of got the chronological history of his involvement with Binghamton hockey during our first intermission visit. Time now to look at the current state of affairs here with the Ottawa Senators and Binghamton Senators relationship. And with it, start off with a bang. Take us all the way back and getting involved once again in AHL hockey, a 5-year gap once the franchise, the Binghamton Ranger franchise, was sold to MSG. But then becoming part of a totally different ownership group for the most part and bringing AHL hockey back to the Southern Tier in the summer of 2002.
Well, Grady, when the Rangers moved to Hartford, part of that deal was they wanted me to go with them, and I said, well, how long? And they said, well, at least 2 years. I said, okay, I'll go for I actually signed a contract for 2 years. And then at the end of that period, I never sold my home here, and I had the other business, so I knew I was coming back eventually. At the end of the second year, I told them that, I want to go back to Binghamton, and they had me stay on for another year on a consulting basis, which I did. And when that was all up, I came back here, and I was just operating my other business. And I was approached one day by Senator Libous, and he asked me if there was any possibility, if I thought there was any possibility of bringing the American League back here. He had an investor who was at the time the owner of the BC Iceman that was interested in graduating to the American League and bringing it back here. So I said, well, the first thing we need to do is we need to talk to the league and find out if they're interested in the market, and if they are, then we'll get the two entities together, and that happened. The league did show some interest, and I caught Dave Andrews actually when he was at a playoff game, I guess it was, in Wilkes-Barre. He came up, we had a meeting, and with Senator Libous and the investor, the owner of the Iceman at the time, and everything seemed to go pretty well. They hit it off, and from there, the investor was trying to get the financing in place. Didn't happen, so it was back to the drawing board again, and that's when we realized we had to go find some other investors, and we worked at it, and of course our partners from Pennsylvania, Tim Smith and Tom Bowles, and his wife Lynn, Ray Stanton stepped up, and we're still just a little bit short, so I said to Bob Carr one day, I said, well, what do you say we throw in the rest just to get this deal done? And I was joking. And he said, well, I'm not joking. Let's do it. So we did it just to get the deal done. And that's once we got that done, the affiliation agreement was already worked out with Ottawa, and so that was in place, and the deal with the league was worked out, and was all contingent on getting the financing in place. Once we had that, it was a go.
Well, it was a great.
I think you were the first employee, as a matter of fact.
Well, I know I probably made the most phone calls to you. I know that.
I got Grady's
been bugging you for 20 years.
Every year for 20 years.
And that goes back to being a season ticket holder way back in the day,
right.
and sitting in front of Tom in the old press box. It used to be on the near side of the building. Sometimes was a good experience, sometimes not so good with those chairs being slammed around, depending about what was going on the ice. But certainly known Tom for a long, long time, and obviously the involvement in hockey here, the direct result of that. Great first season here with Ottawa. You go all the way to the Calder Cup semifinals, a fantastic run. I think the season ended on May 20th, and with that, at least the on-ice performance seems to have gone slightly downhill each year thereafter. And I know it's been a bit of a sore spot with the fans, and I know it doesn't sit well with you. And if the fans don't think you don't feel each loss, like I just commented on being in front of you those other years when things don't go well on the ice, you're not one to sit back and talk about your feelings so far as it's kind of gone a little bit astray.
Well, I played for a coach once, long, long time ago. He had a lot of favorite famous sayings, most of which couldn't be said on the air, but one of them is that losing guys is for those other guys. And, I've always felt that way. You got to control that a little bit, but because you can play well and still lose. But it's been tough for not just me. It's been tough for the fans. Hockey fans are emotional fans, most of them, and they live and die with a team, just like the owners do. And it's been a tough go. Ottawa knows that. They know we're not happy. They know the fans are disillusioned, and they're aware of our disillusionment. And this year, I thought early on that they had made the effort to step up. I mean, Brian Murray finally had his regime in place there, where their impact on this team was going to be bigger, and unfortunately, about 3 players that we thought were going to be here from the beginning of the year on, unfortunately for us and fortunately for some of them, I guess. I mean, Matt Kartner was expected to be here. Peter Reagan was, the anticipation was that he was going to be here, and Zubov. And those 3 guys are not here. Those are 3 key players. And they're not here, and that's had an effect on our club. Now, I think, as I've explained to them, if you look at your development operation, the best barometer of how well you're doing is your minor league team. If it's doing well, then you can consider probably that you're doing a pretty good job. If it's not doing so well, then you got to do better. And they're aware of that. And I think that they're as concerned about what's gone on down here as we are. I mean, 5 years out of the playoffs is, it rips my stomach out. But I think that there's several things you need to operate in the American Hockey League. You got to have a lease and a venue that fits and is approved by the league, and you have to have an NHL partner, and they're not easy to find. People are not breaking down the door to come to Binghamton, New York. I can't imagine why they don't, but Ottawa's our partner, and we're going to work with them and hold up our end of this agreement, and I think they'll come along too, because it's in their best interest to have a good, over the long term, to have a good development system, and it starts right here.
And one of the oldest sayings, too, is the chain is only strongest as its weakest link, and when they need guys to call up, you need to have quality guys down here that can step in and fill those roles, and not guys that they're going to call up and give 2 or 3 shifts to, and hopefully that changes around as well.
Every team in the National Hockey League is involved in the American League, and they're involved for a reason. 2 big reasons: depth players and developing players. If you don't have that, then you don't have much of a future.
And with that, taking a look, talking about the future, and maybe circling back to a comment you made during your Hall of Fame speech. You've worked on this thing 25 years, and you're already you wake up every day ready to work on the next 25. Looking forward to the 2010-2011 season. It's been tough this year economically, maybe over the last couple of years, and attendance has gone down a little bit, but I guess good news from a fan's perspective. Hopefully Ottawa continuing to look at getting a little bit more involved here in Binghamton, having a little bit more of a presence as far as their upper-level management coming down and seeing what's going on. But as it impacts the fans with season tickets, no price raise for next year. So in these tough times, that certainly is a good thing to have out there.
Yeah, it's, I mean, everybody's struggling right now, this business, pretty much everybody. So it's certainly a time not to be raising ticket prices and just trying to control expenses and make things better. Everybody's struggling, and we got to get through this period of time. I think Ottawa's aware of that. We have some meetings coming up very shortly to talk about the future and next year's team and teams after that and years after that. So there's a lot on the plate right now, and I look forward to getting into it. I mean, I think we have a lot of a strong basis. It makes a lot of sense for them to be here. They just need to treat it right. I mean, the Elmira, Binghamton, Ottawa scenario is about as good geographically as you're going to find anywhere in the American Hockey League. Guys can go back and forth between Binghamton and Elmira in an hour. You don't have to fly them from somewhere. Players from Binghamton to Ottawa, it's a 4-hour drive, or if they're in New York, Boston, Detroit, Toronto, Philadelphia, Washington, you name it, we can usually get them there pretty quick, just like when Brodeur went up to the Rangers and we didn't find out until, midday that they needed to call him up, and he was there 3 or 4 hours later.
Oh, indeed. And I know one of the things that even going back to the mid-'80s when you took over ownership here in Binghamton, as we wind down our chat here tonight during our second intermission, keeping it affordable, family fun. Is that still a challenge nowadays?
It's a challenge, but we fully understand that the bulk of our audience is mom and dad and the kids. And we try to keep this team, Krista does a great job of keeping this team involved in the community, off the ice. But as a team, as a group, we need to be out there in front of the kids and the mums and dads who pay the bills around here, really. And if we can get the mums and dads and kids coming to the games, then the corporate support follows. The concession sales is there, and You're right, it's been down a little bit for a year or two here, but a lot of teams are off a lot worse than we are.
Well, indeed. Well, Tom, we thank you for your time here tonight and continued success here in the ownership role of the Binghamton Senators. Tom Mitchell, Executive Vice President of the Binghamton Senators in charge of business operations. We'll take a time out. When we come back, much more on the intermission report as well as third period action here on the Senators Hockey Network.